Svenska Handelsbanken, as Robin Fraser said, is a universal bank. We have life insurance, we have a finance company, we have investment banking, we have everything, but the core of the bank and the business model is the branch network. We're basically a Nordic bank, founded in Sweden in 1871, but we have now substantial operations also in the neighboring Nordic countries, Norway, Denmark and Finland. And we have a very fast-growing business in the United Kingdom that I'm responsible for, and we are also expanding in other markets in Eastern Europe primarily. The bank has a presence in some 20 countries around the world, but the core business is in the Nordic region and in the United Kingdom at the moment. The bank was founded in 1871, as I said. The first 100 years we were like any other bank. We went for growth, and the bank became the largest bank in the Nordic region in the 1960s. But the bank got into trouble, and a new CEO was brought in. His name was Jan Wallander, and Robin Fraser referred to him in his speech. And Jan Wallander transformed the bank very dramatically, very radically. And he put in place one overriding objective for the bank, and that is to have a higher return on shareholders' equity than the average of the competition. This is a relative objective, which is quite unusual. Many companies have an absolute objective saying that we want to produce a return on equity of 15% over the business cycle. The idea here was that if we're better than the competition, then we know that we've done something right. And we also have staying power. And the idea was that this should be achieved by generating more satisfied customers than the competition, and also at a lower cost. So this strategy was put in place in the early 1970s, and we have managed to achieve the overriding objective of producing a higher return on equity than the competition now for close to 35 years. Some years we've been way ahead, and some years it's been very tight, so it doesn't come by itself, so we have to work very hard every year. But we have managed to achieve the corporate objective for a very, very long time now. And when it comes to customer satisfaction, we clearly have the most satisfied customers of any bank in the Nordic region. In the UK we haven't started to measure yet, but I'm sure we will have a very good position there as well when it comes to customer satisfaction. Robin Fraser referred to cost effectiveness, and this is a diagram that we found some 15 years ago, produced then by Deutsche Bank, and we have followed up on that ever since. It shows the two most common ways to measure cost efficiency in banking, and that is the cost-income ratio and the cost-to-total assets ratio. And as in most of these diagrams, you want to be in the upper right corner. And you can see here that Swedish banks, Nordic banks are quite efficient, and also British banks are quite efficient. But Handelsbanken is the most efficient bank among the largest universal banking operations in Europe. A couple of years ago, I made a speech at an international banking conference. There were many banks presenting their business models, and I would say almost all of the other banks had a model based on the multi-channel banking concept. And I will say a few words about that concept just to give you a contrast to the Handelsbanken business model. In the multi-channel strategy, you look at three dimensions. It's customer segmentation, be it high net worth individual, the mass market, or the big multinational companies or small business sector. You have channels, you have the branch network, you have the automated teller machines, the ATMs, you have a telephone bank, you might have an internet banking, bank in shops, which some banks are trying. So these are all the channels that you use to distribute your products to the customers. And then you have the products. And in this world, it's all about delivering the adequate product to a certain customer segment through the optimum channel. And this means that if you're delivering a standard product to the mass market, you should do it through a very cheap channel, like internet banking or the telephone bank, while if you're dealing with a more complex product with a high net worth individual, you probably want to have a face-by-face meeting, which is more expensive, but is required to achieve a good result. With this strategy, you are deemed to get some negative effects. Traditionally, these banks operating this way, they are driven by volume, not profits. And there's a lot of focus on sales targets rather than customer needs, because the whole organization is driven by the product owners, and they want to distribute as much as they can of their products, and then you have various sales targets and campaigns. And also, many customers will be approached through different channels, which means that you get a cost overlap, which is not very good for cost efficiency. But I think most important of all is that it creates a lot of confusion for the customer being approached through different channels. And this slide shows the rather confused customer coming into the branch and asking which computer is responsible for his account. So that's the multi-channel banking concept. Many of the banks that spoke at that conference have now adjusted this model, I think, and they now talk about channel integration instead. But 3 years ago, this was the newest fashion in banking. Thank you very much.